Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday. I hope you're all doing fantastically well. It's a sort of a rainy day here, but at least sort of the sun is trying to come out. So we're going to make the best out of it. And I'm very excited to have our guest, Stella Vidal, here with us to talk about an important topic, considering that this is May and it's about Mental Health Awareness Month. And I think it's just about a month to understand and to become aware not only about our mental health, but our overall health and well being, because I don't think we give it that much attention, especially with like every day being seemingly like chaotic and different and disruptive in so many ways. And there's not enough time for us to make that pause. So we're making that intentional pause for the next 25 minutes. So I hope you join us with your cafecito for this very hopefully enlightening and insightful conversation. Stella, thank you so much for being with us here today.
Thank you, Eliana. I'm so excited to talk about mental health and holistic counseling and just dive deeply into this conversation. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So then let's just dive in. And I know you're you're an expert in everything that has to do with holistic psychology. But for those of us that are not in that area, can you tell us a little bit more about what that entails?
Of course. So, holistic psychology is the approach that takes the person as a multifaceted individual. For example, we're not just a brain, we're not just feelings, we're a mind, we're a body, we have a connection to spirit, and we also belong to an environment, a system around us. And many times, what happens is that when people go to counseling, they can do talk therapy and they might learn a little bit about their thought patterns and how they work, and perhaps learn to change some of the emotions that they're feeling. But then they leave and things keep recurring because you have to treat yourself as a multifaceted individual and teach yourself about the balance that you need to have between your mind, between your body, between your spirit, and making sure that that environment is supporting where you're going in life. So, for example, when we first meet in my office, I do a very general survey and I ask you 4 questions. Okay. And so I say to you, Iliana, from 0 to 10, 0 being terrible to 10 being amazing, how is your mind helping you achieve your goals? That's the first question. Okay. The second question is 0 to 10. How is your body helping you achieve your goals? This one is a really funny one because many people go, "Oh my God, my body doesn't want to move. I'm a -5. I have no motivation." Okay, good. So we jot that down. On a scale from 0 to 10, that's my third question. How is your connection to spirit in a spiritual world? It doesn't have to be religion, but as you know, as I believe, we are bigger than this body. So there's definitely a spiritual experience that we're going through in this human experience. And then the last question is from 0 to 10, how is your environment supporting what you're trying to do in your growth as a human being? And so, based on those answers, then we'll know what to focus on and what priorities we'll have in our treatment plan.
I love what you're saying in terms of the metrics, right? Because a lot of the conversations that I imagine, your clients and many of us have of all of these things are, I feel like they're so intangible. Like you can't, that something's off, but you
Yes.
can't put your finger on what it is. You just
Right.
not feel the best. Maybe you feel exhausted or you don't want to get out of bed or you're sad, whatever it is, but you
Yeah.
can't like understand what it is. But
Yes.
having this very tangible way through numbers,
Yes.
I feel like it doesn't feel like a judgy kind of thing. It just is recognizing where I am
Yep.
right now, so that I can then move forward. So
Right.
I love what you're, how you're explaining it. But
Yes.
then let me ask you,
Hmm.
how do I even get to you or to somebody that can help me? Because
Hmm.
I feel like, and this is just from my personal experience, right?
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of, women and in our culture thinking about going to a psychologist or a therapist or just anybody that can help us in that way, or just anybody that can help us, right?
Yes.
Not
Right.
something that we naturally do because it then feels, and we were just talking right before we started, right? Asking for help or acknowledging that we're not feeling good or that we're sick or that something's off because we've been, in a lot of cases, sort of subconsciously trained that you have to be good, you have to be awesome, you can't feel bad. So how does one get to that point, and what are the things that we need to recognize to be able to make that initial bridge?
I love that. Yes. I think as you mentioned, our Latin community, it's basically like, first of all, if you go see a psychologist or a psychiatrist, I mean, está loca, you're crazy. You're not crazy. Let's talk about it. Your grandma wants to help you, your uncle wants to help you. Everybody wants to, as a community, come in. But sometimes, as you mentioned, there comes a point where you really feel off. And that's a great question, because a lot of times we all experience negative emotions. We all experience negative thoughts because we're human beings. And we also carry narratives from our parents and things from our childhood that kind of hinder our ability to see clearly sometimes. But when you really should seek help is when those symptoms are really getting in the way of you going along with your daily life. So if, for example, if your sadness is not allowing you to get out of bed, okay, if your sadness or your anxiety or your negative thinking is not letting you sleep and you're going day after day with very little or no sleep, that's a sign as well. If your social relationships are being affected by this, for example, you used to go out and hang out with people and you're a social being, now you're more retracted and you're more fearful of being around people. If your work environment is being affected where you're falling behind because you're so distracted with negative thinking or with anxiety that you can't finish your tasks, and your boss or your corporate or person is telling you, hey, what's wrong with you, those are true key red flags that perhaps you're not doing everything that you can because you don't know how. I kind of have this funny metaphor where when you know you need psychological help, you feel like a six-car cylinder running on two or three cylinders. By the end of the day, you're putting around and you're not capable of even being there for the people that love you and that you love. So I would start there.
Is there a time frame that you would recommend? And I ask it because I'm talking about myself. I feel like sometimes it's like it's just this week. Like I'm just feeling off this week. And like next week, once this thing is over, we're good. And then next week comes and pero es esta este cachito next week and next week. And then
Yeah.
I mean, we're already in May. I feel like we
Yeah.
started the cafecitos, this time around, and it was like, yes, we're excited. We have all of these things, and now it's like, oh my God, it's May. It's almost like halfway through. And
Yeah.
when we realize like time has really passed. So, is there a time frame that you can recommend to say, this has been happening for whatever period of time, like big red flag?
Yeah. I think there's a couple of markers that I would really look at. Number one, I would say that if your body is giving out on you, okay, because a lot of trauma and past trauma that is in, and then the stress of today's life can really affect our bodies, and that may manifest itself in headaches or not being able to. I'm going to be super open with you, not going to be able to go to the bathroom, for example, as you normally do, and things that your body used to be able to do easily it's now a big task. And I would recommend that if you start to see that your behavior is not, it's not like being able to do your max that is expected from life, and it's really affecting those areas that I mentioned before, I wouldn't wait longer than 2 weeks. Because if you keep waiting and putting things off, something is giving. You might be able to show up, but your body, your body is being dragged through this. And the other thing that is important to note is that a lot of us, when we are traumatized by stress or past experiences, what happens is that our mind and our body disconnect. That's a trauma response. Okay. For example, for me, I disconnect. If I'm overly stressed and something else happens, it's almost like my body says, forget it. This is enough. I can't handle it anymore. And that is something that happens to a lot of us. So we don't want that body to rebel so much that we end up in the hospital. So I would always err on the side of being cautious. And remember that, when you reach out to someone to talk about your mental health, you don't have to continue with someone that you're not comfortable with. Many times people come to me and say, I'm not saying that I'm the best, but when they come to me, they say, I really enjoy the fact that we address more than just talk therapy, because I feel like my body has suffered so much. My anxiety doesn't help me breathe. And I know that I go throughout my day without taking a deep breath. So thank you for teaching me how to breathe. So I think it's important to help your body, listen to your body, because that's the last thing that goes. So if your body's going, let's go. You got to call somebody.
And you touched on something very important about talk therapy, and I know that there are several techniques beyond talk therapy. So, can you share a little bit more? One, about what talk therapy is.
Yes.
Again, for those of us that have never approached this or don't have that background, and then
Yes.
what else is there?
Of course. So talk therapy is basically kind of what it sounds like. You go to someone, you sit down, or you do a virtual session, and you talk about what's bothering you. There's several different components or types of therapy, which I follow. One of them, which is my favorite, is cognitive behavioral therapy. And cognitive behavioral therapy basically has the premise that we first have to think something before we can feel. So if you're feeling anxious or depressed, let's look at those thoughts that precede how you feel. Let's see how those thoughts in your narratives are affecting the way that you're feeling, and see how we can replace that self talk with things that are more productive, more supportive to you and your goals. That's cognitive behavior therapy. And then there's other types like dialective behavioral therapy. There's several ones that address not necessarily the cognitive aspect of it, but I feel like cognitive behavioral therapy for me works the best, okay, as far as talk therapy goes. Then when it comes to holistic psychology, and when we incorporate the mind, the body, and the connection to spirit and the environment, there's different techniques that I use that are like very popular now. And I feel like I used to be doing these things before, like social media took off with them. Mindfulness practices, breath work and mindfulness is something that I use first day that you and I meet. I first kind of see how you are breathing, because I mentioned before, if your body is so stressed, you're probably not listening to it, and it's not really reacting to what you want it to do. So we take a collective deep breath. And if we have time now, I would love to show you the technique that I have. And so that way people can go home with one tool that would be super beneficial. Does that sound good?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right. So this breath work technique is called 4-7-8. Okay. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to inhale for 4, hold it for 7, and exhale for 8. Okay. And on top of that, I want to show you how we are supposed to breathe. So if you watch a little baby, a 6-month-old baby on a crib laying on their back, and you watch them breathe, you'll see that their bellies go up and down when they take a deep breath. That's how we're supposed to breathe. But with time, with years, with trauma, with stress, we stop breathing that way, and we start to breathe very shallowly. So most of the time, if I say to someone, take a deep breath, they're going to go like this. right? From their shoulders up. And that's okay. That's gotten you, to through the three-cylinder feeling. But now we're going to incorporate the diaphragm, and we're going to go back to how we used to breathe as kids. By when you take a deep breath, you expand the stomach, allowing that air to go through the diaphragm. And when you exhale, you're going to squeeze the belly in, almost like a contraction. So breathe in, expand your tummy, breathe out, inhale. Breathe out and it squeeze the belly in. Okay. So those are the different elements of the diaphragmatic breathing. And so I also add a third component, which is connected to the body. So let's do it together again. So take your right hand and press your chest right above your heart. Very good. Take your left hand and put it above your belly button. Beautiful. And now take a second to look down and acknowledge that you're touching your belly and your chest, and acknowledge your body, because many times we go, we get dressed, but we're not even aware that our body is connected to our mind. Okay. So now we're going to take a deep breath in, and I'm going to count to 4. When you inhale, please expand your belly as much as you can. Breathe in for 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold it for 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale for 8. Squeeze the belly in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. One more time. Breathe in for 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold it for 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale for 8. 1, 2. Let go that air. Let go the worry. Keep going. Release, 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 release. Beautiful. Now you can put your hand on your lap and quickly name 3 things that you see right now, Eliana, in your surroundings.
Well, I see you.
Okay.
I'm also seeing the peripheral part, like both sides of, like what's happening here. And then I'm seeing more light, just
Yes.
a brighter room or environment.
Yes. Yes. So when we do this type of breath work, it feels almost like we have landed from planet brain, because we get stuck in our brain for so long. So when we acknowledge our body and we give it the oxygen that it needs, it brings us back to the present moment. And many times we're able to notice things that we didn't before because we were stuck in our thought processes.
That is one, like, yay. Needed that. I didn't know that I needed it.
I
You know
know.
what I also found interesting? Because you gave the instructions, you gave them twice, and then you were going through it. And
Yeah.
still, the first time around, I did not breathe through the four. Like I was already holding it. Like
Yes.
I think I did the deep breath in 1, 2, and then
Uh-huh.
I was already holding the 3 and the 4. So
Uh-huh.
when you said now hold the
For
7,
7.
I was like, but I've only been holding like for 2. Like this is gonna be only for 9, and then so I just thought it was interesting that my brain was already, and it
Ahead
was
of
because
it.
it was already ahead of itself.
Yes.
It's
Right.
where I think that's the day to day, right? Like you already
Correct.
be like
Correct.
2 steps ahead of everything, to the
Yes.
point that I was literally 2 steps ahead of the breathing.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's when I was like, no, no, no. I had to breathe for 4. So the
Yes.
second time
The
around, now
second
I
time
did
you
it
did.
right. Right,
Yes.
I did it fully.
Absolutely.
But I just caught my attention that I was
Yeah.
like, you said the instruction. I heard it twice. I had it in my mind, and still, right?
It
I
takes
still I went.
practice, all these things take practice, but at least you got it on the second time around. And I wanted to finish real quick with the rest of the technique. So this is a breath work and mindfulness. Mindfulness, when I ask you to notice things around you, when we engage our senses into the exercise, it kind of cements our ability to be present. And that is the most powerful tool that we can have for any mental health challenge. When you are in this present moment, you're not worried about the future, which causes anxiety. You're not reminiscing about past experiences that causes depression. We're here in this present moment. And what one of my biggest idols in my life, Dr. Deepak Chopra says, is the best way to get ready for the future is to be here now. And I love that. I love that.
I love that as well.
Yes.
Thank you
Yes.
for sharing.
You're welcome.
So, what are some the what are like the broader benefits of holistic psychology, and how can someone go through that maybe has gone through deeper trauma
Yeah.
or some other things, like if you can share some examples. You've already done a great job of sharing some others that we it could maybe somebody in an audience goes like, oh, I didn't know that I was going through that, and can now become aware so that they can then,
Got
seek out to you or somebody for help.
Definitely. So, yeah, trauma recovery is something that is so necessary. And I feel like most of us have gone through some traumatic experience, and trauma is very subjective. I define it as too little too late or too much too soon. When, for example, as we're children, our parents are not there for us, they neglect us, or in relationships per se, or too much too soon. It's something that we can't really comprehend, and our brain and our body disconnect. So we all may carry some trauma within us, and the first thing that I notice is that when I became a therapist, is that I wanted to learn more about the somatic experience, the body, because our body, when it's connected, it can serve us as such an ally to, our daily life, as opposed to dragging it around when it's traumatized and disconnected. So there's definitely things that I do in my center here. I am adjacent to a national forest. So many times I take my patients for a mindful walk, and we walk through these amazing pine trees and glorious nature. We do grounding techniques, which means, we take off our shoes, and feel the ground beneath us, which is clinically proven to help our blood circulation, actually, because nature does have an energy charge, and so do we as human beings. So when you go out into nature, it really helps to restore our natural rhythms, and not enough people talk about that. In the past, people have looked at grounding or hugging a tree as something ridiculous, but in fact it's something that Chinese people and people in the Eastern world have done for thousands of years, because they know the benefits of it. So I actually also go through I use poetry, because a lot of times when we're traumatized, when we're stressed, we lose that connection to that childlike spirit, that creative part of us. Because when you're in fight or flight mode, when you're stressed and hypervigilant, it's hard for you to slow down and be creative. So we work on that reconnecting you to that creative part of you, because it helps, again, balance that mind, body, spirit, and environment. So there's somatic techniques that I use for severe trauma. One is called tapping, which is EFT, which is emotional freedom techniques. And tapping basically focuses on tapping on certain parts, meridians in our bodies that hold trauma. And this tapping technique, as you talk about trauma or stress or a feeling in your body, and you tap with this technique, it releases a lot of those blockages, and allows that trauma to come and go, and get released. So again, I love working with the body and creativity, because I think that's something that we have neglected in our culture and in general. And being able to restore that curiosity, and say it's okay to go play outside, hug a tree, climb a tree, whatever, just don't kill yourself. But it really helps restore our original version of who we were before all these negative things happened to us.
I love that, and we're gonna have to like continue the conversation, because we're well, one, we're out of time, but two, because as part of one of our tracks here at United Latinas, it's all about well-being in as well, and tapping has been something that we've been exploring and hearing that many of our members are looking into. So more to come on that for everybody that's watching, because I hear what you're saying in terms of trauma. We've all gone through trauma, and I think that just going through COVID was enough for,
Yes.
like, if you thought that you've never gone through trauma in the past, if you went through COVID, which is the majority of us, like,
Yes.
there's a lot of trauma that
Correct.
maybe unconsciously we didn't know that happened to us. So
Yes.
yes, yes,
Absolutely.
absolutely. Oh my God, this is like, it has been wonderful, Stella. Where can people find you other than United Latinas? Because you're one of our dear, dear members. And obviously, you can all connect with all of our members through our United Latinas website. But in addition to that, where can people connect with you?
You can find me on my website, selfloveharbor.com. That is my wellness center here in Aventura. I do in-person sessions, as I mentioned, and also via Zoom. I also take insurances for people are blessed to have insurance for mental health. And also Instagram, it's Stella Vidal _mental health.
Awesome. That is wonderful. Connect with us on our hub. It's unitedlatinas.mn.co, because that's our digital platform where all of us are. That's also a place where you can connect with Stella as well, and make it a goal. This is what this month is all about, is for us to take a little moment of our month. We all have that 10 minutes that we were scrolling,
Yes.
trying to find something to watch on somewhere. Use those 10 minutes instead to connect, to take a pause, to do these breathings, or to connect with anybody else that can help you in some way or form. It's going to be so important and can make a dramatic difference in your life, so that this year can become your best year yet.
You deserve
And also,
it. You deserve it.
yes, and also you'll find there and on the hub and on our website as well, in events. You'll see all the events that we have coming up. We have our Latina Leadership Meeting on Tuesday, the 21st. We have our second panel. We had one yesterday. We have our second panel coming up on menopause and aging, which is such a taboo kind of, nobody wants. It's incredible. We normally have all of these panels registered to the brim, and this one we have a very limited amount of people registered, and we think it's because people don't want to even like touch on the registered thing, because it's like, no.
We need to normalize
But it's
that for sure.
we need to normalize it,
Yes.
because we're all going to go through it at
Yep.
some point in time, or we're
Yep.
going through it, or
Yeah.
and we need to talk about it, because it yes.
It's
That's
part of that
talking about
body
trauma.
self-love.
Talking about, yes.
Yes.
Oh my
Yes.
God. So definitely that's happening on the 23rd. It's going to be a safe space. And we have two beautiful experts that are experts in exactly this topic, that are going to walk us through everything and answer all the questions. And then we have our Maritza Coscarelli, a resident expert on public speaking, who's going to talk about crafting and delivering impactful presentations, whether you are heading to that TEDx experience or you just want to have a great presentation to show off. She's going to take us through the magic on how to make that happen. And then we have all our June events about to get up and running as well. So connect with us. You're not alone. This is a community for all of us to help and support each other and send each other a big, big hug. Thank you so much, Stella, for being here with us today.
My pleasure.
And thank you, everybody, for joining us. And see you all next week, Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, with your Cafecito. Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend.
Bye.
Bye.